Okay, so welcome everyone. This is the Drupal 8 critical issues meeting for October 9th, 2015. We do have a critical, but we'll also talk about things that should be RC targets for further RCs in Drupal 8. And I guess I will start talking about what I worked on. So I was mostly working on remaining criticals with Alex Potts. Around config translation data loss, and then I was helping out with the release itself, the release announcement, and all kinds of communication so that things are updated properly on Drupal.org and everything is in place. And that went out, and then I went and tried to catch up on some sleep, and that worked, and looking forward to what we're going to work.
Is it my go? Sorry, I might have just cut out.
Daniel?
Yeah, I don't know what I did last week.
No problem. It's all in the Git log now.
Yeah, I probably worked on some issues. That's what I know. But I was more and more relaxed during the last days, so
That's a good thing.
Yeah, sounds good. Alex, you want to talk about your stuff?
Sure. I did much of what Gabor did, which was like working on the last few remaining criticals and AUI, and then getting the release and helping proofread all the release materials. Pretty stoked that we have an RC1 and looking forward to future RCs. And yeah, now I'm just like trying to coordinate what work we're actually going to do during the RC, with a view to like looking at things that we actually have to fix before release candidate, and then how we still maintain some momentum towards 8.0.1 and 8.1.0, because I think like if we only work on RC stuff, then there's not that much work to go around. First up, and secondly, it will mean that when we get the release out, and 2 weeks later when we're doing the 8.0.1 release, we won't have as much stuff as we probably should. So yeah, trying to work out how to do that.
Okay, so the process going forward from now is that we plan to release a new RC every 2 weeks on Wednesdays, right?
Yep.
Those may be released with critical issues, as for anyone listening in and wondering what's happening now and what's allowed and stuff like that. And then once committers feel like the rate of criticals or the rate of issues coming in are not that are fine, or look stable, and that ensures a stable Drupal 8 release, then Drupal 8 is going to be released itself in one of those windows.
Yeah.
Okay. So you proposed we look at. Do you want to look at the critical first?
Yeah, we might as well. So the critical we have at the moment is 24.79.48.7, which is a critical around configuration dependencies and image styles. When you place an image in an entity display, you get to configure which image style it uses, but the image style doesn't have a dependency on the entity display, so that when you delete the image style, it doesn't then go up and affect the entity display, which is what we need. And there's this also there's this interesting functionality in image styles to do replacements, so that when you do a delete, you can say, instead of using this image style, replace it with this image style. So that functionality works, but it doesn't really play that well at the moment with the dependencies system. So this issue is about fixing that. At the moment, if you do delete an image style and it's used in an entity display, you get an error appearing. So one of the things that I'm discussing with the other committers at the moment is what are acceptable RC targets which aren't criticals, because one can argue that this is an edge case. It doesn't fit. If you look at our issue priority levels, it's not something that every user will come across, because not every user will go through the convoluted steps of actually getting to getting to create this error that they will see on their site. So like, what's that margin? Like, does this fall on the critical side of it? Because is it that rare that someone deletes an image style, or is actually the steps that for this one to take, does that mean that it's just a major? But given that it can create a PHP error in your website, should we still make that anything that does that an RC target, or where are these levels? So just trying to work that out at the moment. And for example, at the moment there's an issue where if you install standard and go to the theme settings for Bartik and press save, you'll get a PHP warning. Like, to me, that should be an RC target, because that's like very basic functionality to go and change your theme settings, and you don't have to do anything special. That's just installing standard. Here, like setting up image styles, then going and placing them, using them in an entity view display, and then deleting them, that feels a bit more convoluted. But I don't know where that level lies. So, if people have opinions and would like me to take them to the committed team, then go for it. Tell me what you think.
So if I understand you, well, echo. If I understand you correctly, then you're saying this is something that doesn't necessarily need to be fixed during RC. It could be fixed in 8.0.1.
Well, I mean, you can fix pretty much everything later, right? The actual question is what should be fixed.
Yeah, I was just verifying.
Well, for me, it feels like something like the first, so something which could happen right after the first install. So something which gives a really bad impression about Drupal 8, this should be fixed. And of course, setting like Bartik up is more critical than anything like in the image style when you do something then it breaks.
Yeah, that sounds sensible. Alex, if you're talking, you're still muted.
Who muted me? Gibran.
Yeah, there was terrible echo, so I muted you.
But it can't have been from me, because like I'm on headphones. So whoever is on speakers, they echo. So where was I? I've totally forgotten what I was saying. So the issue for me is like how the commonality, like the Bartik issue, which is, let me just find it so we can actually talk about it, is 10.06.26.6. I'll just paste that in IRC. That issue. That really is a super common thing. So obviously we have to fix that in RC. I'm quite tempted to make that critical. But this image style thing, I think could wait till 8.01. But I think if it's ready, considering it produces a warning in the UI with just taking UI steps, I think that that's the kind of level that we should make things RC targets.
Sounds fair. As long as the scope is very well defined and the risk is limited, which I think is true in this case, I also don't see any harm in just fixing this during RC.
Yeah, one thing we should do is to fix it in the most in the smallest way possible, and then maybe open up another issue for something after the release.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment of like trying to do the least amount of work and possible, because then there's less risk.
Yeah, I mean, it's the work is not the direct work on that particular patch is not the problem, but reviews, and the more code changes, the more new bugs could be introduced, etc.
Yeah. And so that gets to another thing that I think is worth thinking about on all these issues, is like one of the things that we probably need to get better at is reviewing test coverage. Because it's pretty astonishing. Like if you look at the issue with Bartik saving the theme settings, that there is actually only one module that saves the theme settings form for a specific theme in its tests. And the really bizarre thing is that the module that does this is the color module, which has some of the worst test coverage that there is. So yeah, you couldn't make that up.
Yeah, yay color module.
Yay color module, because like the way that I found this bug, or refound it, was during the build up to the RC. Sasha Burdett did an upgrade of one of his sites to the latest dev just before RC, and he found a bug whereby we were putting a translatable markup inside translatable markup, and that works fine if locale is not installed. So I wrote a test to enable locale on every single web test and to see what fails, and the color module's tests failed because locale depends on file. The theme settings form has specific code for file, and it was that code path was never being tested when file was enabled and saving a specific theme settings form for a theme. It's just like, yay! I'm kind of crazy that the color module has that coverage, but yeah, so yeah, test coverage is super important in the RC, and everything we add, we have to try and be as devious as possible to think about how it could break. Because, yeah,
I think that's a good line. Be as devious as possible and trying to break it in your own test coverage.
Yeah. And obviously start writing tests first before we're fixing the bug. So I'd really like to see when we do RC target issues, to see test-only patches, and especially if they can be done before the actual fixing of the problem. That would be awesome, because proving the break is half the battle.
Well, it's easy to break Drupal, but it's not necessarily exactly the bug.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, if there's more than one bug, you might just fix one.
That is true.
So, can I ask something?
Of course.
Yeah. So, related to criticals, we changed our policy of if you can conditionally create get a white screen of death, it's not a critical, it's a major, because there are a lot of steps to go through that if like admin can get a white screen of death because doing some admin work, it's not a critical, it's a major, according to our priority. So do you think we should change this slightly for RC?
No, I don't. I think that that's why I would argue that the image style issue is a major. That doesn't mean it can't be fixed in RC with committer discretion. If we feel like this is important enough, it's just like trying to get around the idea that everything's a critical. Like it's not. If we were deciding whether or not to release Drupal tomorrow, if we were in one of the release windows, we felt that the nature of the criticals that were coming in were meant that Drupal was in a releasable stage, and this was like the last thing left, and it was critical, I'd be like, this isn't critical. So the real question is would we block a Drupal release on it?
Yeah, for me the question is always, can you recover from it? I mean, if it's just like a broken form submission, and basically just the user goes back to the previous page and everything is all right, then it's not convenient that it's there, but it's also, yeah, as you said, not really critical.
Yeah, and in the case of the image style thing, I believe that what you can do is, maybe not, you get a fatal.
So would this change during the mature release cycle when we'll have the full release?
Sorry?
So are we going to change this policy when we'll have a full release?
I wouldn't have thought so.
Like we can't release.
I mean,
we can't release a product which have fatals, you know, during a workflow or admin workflow, following an admin workflow.
Why? I mean, there are so many ways to get a fatal white screen of death if you really want to. And I mean, also previous versions like had bugs. Bugs are there.
Yeah.
I think Gibran is mostly just asking if we can fix these fatals in minor releases like 8.0.1 and so on.
Which is obviously true.
Yes. So is that correct, Gibran? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, kind of, yes, but it seems to me that if you have a fatal in your code and you are shipping a product, it doesn't, play nice with the product, does it?
But what Daniel and Alex are trying to say, I think, is in almost every piece of software out there, there will be some way to get to a fatal. And it's always a matter of judging whether it is an edge case, whether many people will hit it or not. And it feels like in this case, it is not something that a majority of people would do, and therefore it is okay to ship with that fatal. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
That's exactly.
Also looks very likely that it's going to be fixed either way. So.
Well, exactly. And so it's really about trying to be honest about what's really critical. We have to accept that Drupal 8 probably will not be released with any criticals. It will be released with a lot of majors. Like we have something like 400 plus major bugs and 400 plus major tasks still, although they have started to come down for the first time, which is absolutely awesome. I don't want to ship with this bug, Gibran, but at the same time, I still don't think it's critical because of the steps that the user has to do to get there.
Yeah, I just want it to be clear, the proper word about it. So, because it's keep on confusing me. I created a bug; it was critical, in my opinion, and Daniel told me this rule, and I agree with that. I respect that, and I think you're right that if not everyone is hitting that fatal, then there is no point to making that bug a critical.
Yeah, I think which is one thing which is kind of confusing is the difference between critical for Drupal and critical for a site. pretty much every major bug is kind of critical for a site. I could totally imagine that some of the majors don't basically stop people from publishing their site, actually, though it's not necessarily all or many people out there. Or well, it will be many, of course, but not most of them. It is just a major.
Yeah.
So there was this issue about converting the views listing. I posted the link in the IRC. So in RC, I had a chat with XJM, and she said that if the disruption is not before RC, if the disruption is not that big, we can add it to any Drupal release. So is this still true for this case as well, like for RC?
No.
I can work on these tasks, right?
No.
What I would think could be possible is not to convert it, but to rather add a view which has the same functionality and disable it by default.
Maybe, but I would still put that in a minor release or a patch release. I don't. It's just not necessary.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's absolutely true.
Just don't need to do it.
So the goal of the RC phase is to stabilize what we have and not to change it further. So it's to make it stable for release and hopefully get as soon to release as possible. So we can do these kind of nice changes again in 8.1.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that you cannot work on it.
Yeah.
It just means that it probably won't land before 8.0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I was saying in like some of the things that I was kind of working on. One of the things that I'm very keen on doing is working out how we can work on the RC 8.0.1 and 8.1.0 at the same time in constructive ways. Unfortunately, obviously, our whole model of having like one RDBCQ makes that a little interesting. And also the way in which we currently work with Git, like no merges, and not really using Git's branching strategies at all, makes it more difficult. But if you look at a project like Symfony and you do a Git log, you see lots and lots of pretty lines and merging around because they actually manage long-term support on older releases and they manage like several branches at the same time, and I think we need to get more used to that kind of workflow. Otherwise we can't work on multiple things at the same time, and it means that everyone has to work on RC or nothing else, and then or work on stuff and then go, well, I'm going to have to do that again later, which is really frustrating. So I think we need to fix it. Not sure how D.O is going to help us do that, because I think that some of the ways that it works makes it a little tricky. But we'll see. We're discussing it at the moment. And obviously, the first pack on RC and 8.0.1, the first patch release. But yeah, most tasks, like this issue is a major task. Most tasks which are not just like kind of the coding standards changes to which we've agreed can happen during RC will not get in during RC.
So the patch release will not get an RC or beta version.
No. Okay.
So only major version upgrade will get the RC, like 8.1.0.
That's a minor version in some Ver languages. But yeah, minor versions will go through some form of beta and release candidate phases. At least that is how it currently stands.
So, just to really be clear, so basically, like tasks and of course features aren't part of the RC phase.
Yeah. pretty much. I mean, like there is a very special type of task that is for consideration, which is like coding standards cleanups, which don't touch runtime code. So, for example, yesterday we cleaned up like all the unused use statements in core, which like removed like nearly 1,000 lines of code, or 1,000 lines of from all the files. So stuff like that can go in. There's the patch about changing which quote style we use in JavaScript, and then it adds a ESLint test for that. That can go in. But most tasks which are like convert something into a view, or the kind of minor the tasks which some people would think of as a feature but really aren't a feature because they're not something you go, way, Drupal does this. Those, yeah, they're off the table. Because as Gava said, it's like we are stabilizing the release candidate to release it. Like new stuff is not stabilizing anything. It will introduce more problems.
So it would mean that for the minor releases, there is no string freeze, still will hit the RC for them, right?
With minor releases, strings can change, and there will be an RC period and stuff like that. But again, that's all being discussed at the moment, right? Like we haven't. Okay. And minor releases, just to get this really clear, is like when we go from 8.0 dot whatever to 8.1.0. That's a minor release. Patch releases are when we go from 8.0.1 to 8.0.2. Patch releases have no kind of like RC or release candidate thing, but we anticipate some form of release cycle management for the 6 monthly minor releases.
So I have this question related to last critical. We committed calculate configuration entity dependency on install. So in this, in the last comment you added, Alex, you said that we can remove the old post-update hooks, like which are saving the config entities, because we are saving them again and again. So
yeah, well,
can we?
Well, not now, because we've now had a point. We've now hit an upgrade path point, which is like the RC1. But at that time we could have chosen to remove the field updates because all they're doing is the same thing. But now it doesn't make sense to, because people remember that people when they upgrade their sites, they're moving from defined tag to defined tag, right? We don't support upgrade paths from like dev to dev at the moment, or at least we didn't before RC1, and I think now we do. But so people were upgrading from beta 16 to RC1, and so they will have run those post updates, and we can't go back and change them, I don't think.
Okay.
Going forward, of course, now when people are on RC1, they will have run that post update. So anything new that needs to save configuration entities during a post update, we'll need to go and do that.
Okay.
Yeah, upgrade paths are hard, and anything we can do, and this comes back to like Daniel's point about doing the smallest fix possible, anything we can do to make a fix not require an upgrade path, we should definitely do, because generally they require like thinking in like some kind of like weird matrix of all the possible different start states of a site to all the possible end states, and it's not easy to predict everything.
So our main focus is to fix major bugs as much as we can, right?
Our main focus is to test and find any critical issues that still exist, and to work out which of the major bugs that are RC targets that we should try and fix during RC. But it's not our main focus to fix major bugs at the moment. It's to triage them and test Drupal 8 to make sure that everything works as expected.
So, isn't it bad for the project that backlog keep on growing for master? Major, sorry.
Yes, but it's not growing at the moment.
Yeah, because we don't have any criticals, and everyone is working on master majors.
No. I mean, majors aren't growing at the moment. Majors are going down for the first time. For the past month, majors have been going down. This is like the first time we've actually got to that, and they will take a massive jump down when we do the patch releases and the first minor release. But to get to a release, we have to decide, what we're going to do, and what we're trying to do is to stabilize Drupal 8 to the point where we can release it. Will we release it with major bugs? Yes. Has every single previous version of Drupal gone out with major bugs? Yes. I don't know about the state of the major bug queue when Drupal 7 was released, but I would anticipate that it was growing as well.
So, okay, it's one last irritating question, because I think I am asking really irritating questions. Like, if I work on a major bug, can we, or is there a possibility that we can commit during the RC?
Yes, with committer discretion. And so at the moment we're just discussing tags around this, but so we probably need 3 tags. At the moment there's the RC target tag, which is to be added by committers when it has been agreed that issue is a target for release candidate and will possibly be committed when it hits RDBC, subject to testing and all the normal conditions of actually landing a patch. There is another tag that I've started to use called RC eligible, which means that if you look at the what's eligible for RC page and it doesn't come under critical or is not an RC target, then it can be tagged with this. So those are things like docs fixes and testing changes, because otherwise, if I look at the RDBCQ, it's hard to work out what's eligible and what's not. So I want that tag so that I can go, okay, show me all the RDBCs that are RC eligible, so that I can quickly go through them and go, yes, this is RDBC eligible, commit it. No, it's not. Actually, you guys are wrong. So do that. And then the other tag we need, which we haven't agreed on what it is yet, is something for people to tag issues with that they want committers to have a look at and think about whether or not it is possible for it to be an RC target. At the moment, what I would suggest that people do is that they just ping me or Catch or another committer when they are in IRC.
For that latter option, the latter category, potential RC target but needs committer feedback, what I did a few times in the past few weeks, I think, is tag it RC target and tag it needs committer feedback. But I'm not sure if that's the best approach. But if neither of you is online, maybe that is something that could be acceptable.
Yeah. I think I would like a separate tag, because then I can manage the queues easier, because then it's like, okay, RDBC RC targets, let's have a look at the status of those, get a feel for how we're doing, because they will influence the release decision. RC eligible means like, okay, great, it's RDBC, time to do a review for commit, and whatever this other thing is, potential RC target, let's say, then I can look at that queue and go, okay, that isn't, or and bring it up with the rest of the committers. Because like one of the things about committer discretion in the RC phase is that it's no longer like in the beta phase it was okay for a single committer to choose on to make a case for discretion and go forward and not be so collegiate with the other committers, whereas in the RC phase we've agreed to discuss it with as many committers as possible first, because each of the committers has different strengths, and we want to make sure that we get the best possible kind of like, actually, how is this going to affect the release? Thinking before we commit to doing something during the RC, because the whole point of the RC phase is to stabilize and not introduce more stuff.
Yep, sounds sensible.
So, would you assign like separate or committer for minor version releases, like 8.0, the product owner or release in charge is Catch, and then 8.1 is Alex, and so on and so forth. So, would it be like that, or it will be, something like this?
That hasn't been discussed at the moment, like exactly how and who is managing each of the minor or patch releases. We've just got to RC. That took a lot out of us, like trying to plan how things are going to be managed once Drupal 8 is released is something that we started talking about like at length at Barcelona, but like that kind of like level of detail we haven't got to yet. So are there any issues that people want to discuss, like, or want me to bring up with the other committers?
Yeah, so there is one in the release notes explicitly mentioned as being a potentially, I don't remember the exact wording, but an important bug that we are shipping with, and that one is cacheability headers potentially causing problems in hosting infrastructure that you're on.
Yeah.
And so I only found out after RC1 that it actually links to this issue, whereas I expected it to link to this issue. So we have two issues. One is about being able to specify in some sort of configuration or setting what the actual supported maximum header value size is on that infrastructure. Because maybe one piece of infrastructure supports 1 kilobyte, another 4, another 16, maybe one goes crazy and supports a megabyte. I don't know. It doesn't matter what the number is. What matters is that it could be different, that number. And it's important that Drupal knows that it's different. And the other issue is about being able to completely not send it if you don't need it. But in some cases, or let's say actually in the majority of cases, you don't need that header to be exposed to the world. You don't need Drupal to send it in the final pages it's delivering. So that will solve the majority problem. But still, another problem is that some sites do need that header to be passed on, for example, to a reverse proxy, to a CDN. And then it does still matter what the actual supported header value, header size limit is.
So
and
here's
so
my thing.
Just one more bit. I think that the only thing that we really need during RC, and it's already marked as an RC target, is the second issue, which allows you to not send that header or send that header. And then maybe in 801, we can allow a header value size limit to be specified, because that seems less urgent, less critical than, because it then is no longer able to break things because you would disable it.
Yeah, but then if you were running with a reverse proxy, you don't have all the advantages, right?
Yes. Yeah. And so that's
and in fact with our, doesn't that mean potentially if you are caching things in your reverse proxy, and we would admit cacheable headers, we would say things are cacheable now because of the cache tags.
Mm-hmm.
Does that not introduce potential issues?
Well, my reasoning is that the second issue, the one that is currently RDBC, that is an RC target already, that one fixes the problem even for shared hosting, right? It makes the site usable in case your hosting infrastructure is limited. And on the other hand, if you are using a reverse proxy and you're using a CDN, then you are a pretty advanced user already. So I think it's more or less okay to leave those people, quote unquote, out in the cold and have them take care of themselves, because they already need pretty advanced knowledge to set all of those things up anyway, and therefore it would be okay to fix it slightly later. That's my
So
thing.
this is what I totally don't understand at all. How could you actually use a reverse proxy and leverage the cache tags without any kind of information passed to the reverse proxy, which cache tags should be invalidated?
Yep, that doesn't
so
work.
You always need a
Yep.
module. So in other case, it's never useful. So core is not useful at all.
It's never useful to what was that?
It's never useful without that additional module to actually have the headers there.
Except for debugging, yes, I agree.
So I'm wondering whether we could actually, I mean, it's really a test-only feature, in other words, because whatever reverse proxy module you have could also add the cache tags back.
Yes. Yes, and in that sense, that is exactly what the second issue delivers, right?
Yeah.
It only sends it if you explicitly set the reverse proxy equals true setting, or when you explicitly set the send cacheability headers equals true setting for debugging purposes. And so in that sense, that issue that is already RDBC does exactly what you're now describing, I think. Or I think maybe you're saying that it should go even further, like, but I'm not sure how exactly.
Yeah. It just feels to be a functionality which is really actually not needed in like libcore, but rather, I mean, I know why it's there because it's useful for page caching, but I mean, technically it won't be needed.
I think you're right.
And I'm pretty sure the reason why the wrong issue is linked here, or rather the more generic fix, is that it got changed. At least when I asked Jess to whether that could be like announced in the RC node, I certainly linked the second issue, but I think like Catch wants to solve it in a more generic way, which is to not send all the headers out, but just like a limited amount of them.
Okay, maybe, but that's not like his comment doesn't say that. He just said that he wanted to keep going with the header value size limit issue, regardless of the second one.
Okay, so it's not like an A or B.
No, it's not. Yeah, okay. I think we need both, but I think the one that is currently RDBC is the one that is absolutely essential, and the other one is basically nice to have, and that's kind of what your point is going to as well. Like, do we even need this header to be exposed the majority of the time? And I think you're actually maybe right. Maybe we need to refocus that issue to have Drupal only ever send that header if the send cacheability headers flag is true. And so then it becomes a debugging only flag.
Yeah, so when we talk about that, I mean, you need, in order on production to have anything usable, you need a module for that.
Yep.
So in that case, you have a container rebuild anyway. So I was wondering, does that need to be a setting?
That's another good point.
Why would you ever switch that during runtime? This time I really want to send the headers.
It's a good point.
I was just thinking about it loud now.
Yeah, that is true. I guess in setting, we want you as a developer to be able to enable it in settings at local.php, and almost everything in there is a setting, but not actually everything is. There's also some config in there. So you're right.
Well, on the other hand, I mean, even for Twig, we require a container rebuild for Twig debug, and that's way more.
Yeah, I agree.
It's way more common than setting.
Yeah, I'm okay for this to move into a container parameter. Makes sense.
Okay, so Alex, what is your thinking around this, or maybe you don't have a firm opinion about this yet?
I think a container parameter is fine. I think pursuing the issue, like the issue that's currently RDBC, and getting that into the first RC seems a matter of priority, because it will mean that that people can test in environments, in more environments, without seeing white screens of death, which are not to do with Drupal, but to do with their reverse proxies.
Well, not even that. It's also their web server. Everything along the stack has to support the.
Well, but Apache supports arbitrary header sizes, or doesn't it?
Not always, no.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought it's always just engines.
Oh, no. It's not always reverse proxies. It can be Apache just as well.
Cool. So I think that like getting it off by default and making it the remit of the proxy module that you enable or you install,
Yep.
Is to configure that is a good idea.
Yep, I agree. So
it makes perfect sense, because it is the only time when those cache tag those headers become useful is when you have a module to interact with a proxy, and unless you have that module, then what's the point of them?
Yep, I agree. You always need to communicate invalidations somehow.
Yeah, otherwise you might as well just go back to some kind of like procedure whereby you just blotter your proxy whenever you do something on your site.
Well, what verb was that? Blotter.
Blotto.
I do not know what that word is.
As plateau, so something like to make
to invalidate everything in your proxy when you want to ensure that a change is actually seen by people. You know, the old Drupal 7 way, clear everything.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. I was having a really similar issue recently with the aggregated JavaScript files.
You were having a similar issue with aggregated JavaScript.
Yeah, so for some reason, I mean, I changed. Yeah, so, okay. Some code got deployed, some JavaScript files changed. So, like Drupal cache rebuild. But, I mean, but still, for some reason, the reverse proxy had the old aggregated JavaScript files. Even the HTTP response was sent out by Apache.
But how is it even possible?
So,
like the hash changes, right?
The file names should change.
Yes. Alas, that is broken.
But I mean, yeah, that was confusing because there had to be a we flush all the varnish cache things or something in front of it, which was confusing. Okay, well.
Well, I suspect actually that what I don't know the details, but it sounds like what you may have been seeing is that it kept on using the same mapping from combination of libraries to a certain aggregation JavaScript file, because that is cached as well, because that was very, very expensive.
So wait, so the hash is generated using basically the content of the files.
Yes.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, this has been months.
Because I mean, if in case it would be just the used libraries, then that would be not enough.
You broke up for a second, but I think you said if it was just the file names that are used, that would not be enough. Yeah, that's true. That would not be enough.
Yeah, maybe.
But actually, it's
worth to look it up.
Well, actually, so are you saying I modified a JavaScript file and the assets, the aggregated assets, did not change automatically? Is that essentially what you're saying? Well, that is
that's for sure. No.
Yeah, so, okay, because that is by design, because it would be too expensive to hit the file system every single
no question. But that was like a Drush rebuild, and then still not the most up.
That should work.
Yeah, exactly, but it didn't. So
try to reproduce that, please, because if that is the case,
I can totally actually. I think, that this should be fixed before the release.
Do you mean the asset one or do you mean
the
the
cache
build
header
one?
The cache
Yes, totally.
header.
And so I'm writing down a comment synthesizing, summarizing the things we've discussed.
Yeah. I have no fear that that RC target will land before RC2. Right, the one that turns it off, and I think the decision we've just come to that to only enable to make it the responsibility of a module that integrates with a reverse proxy to change this behavior on installation makes 1,000% sense.
Yes, totally. Because I already ported the Cloudflare and Fastly modules, and both of those even require a very specific name for the header anyway. So you need it was literally just renaming the header from Drupal something to whatever they expect.
Yeah. So this makes perfect sense. Like,
yes.
And then documenting it in the same way that we document the Twig debug stuff, so that people can enable it and insights without a reverse proxy to do the testing.
Yep.
Also good.
Yep. Totally.
So I can bring up another issue, which is the following, which is remove the usage of the chain router by default. So we have this interestingly designed architecture how the router system works, and it's basically a router in another router in another router, and the most outer router is called the chain router, and the chain router basically allows you to have multiple routers on the same level. So if in case one router doesn't return something, the next one can return something. But the thing is, in core, we just have one actual router. So that chain router doesn't help us at all by default. So the question is whether we can somehow get rid of the chain router, at least in default Drupal, because that makes it much easier to debug the router, or at least it makes it a little bit easier to debug the router. And this is kind of important because like a lot of people might make mistakes when they write the routing YAML definitions. But it's also quite a change.
So for me, this feels like an 8.1 thing. To be frank, because it's not necessary. Whilst there's a small case for it making things like simpler to understand and increased robustness, it's not massive. It's like if something is done wrong in a routing YAML file, then they'll fix it because it'll be obvious quickly that it's wrong. Yeah, I can't see why we need to do it now.
Okay, that's fair. But even for 8.1, we would need to do it in a BC compatible way somehow.
Yeah, so
whatever that means.
Yeah, whatever that means. And maybe it's not possible for this cycle because it's not the hugest thing. Like, I like the change. I wish we'd got it done. But there's many changes.
I was just bringing one issue up as an example.
Yeah. Well, totally, it's great because I got a tweet out of it. Because like even just saying the words "the outer router" just makes me smile.
Yeah, plus fun.
So given that it's a task, I think it's a complete display of that. That we can't do that in 8 at all.
Well, we can if we agree that if committed discretion means committed discretion. So if there's a major task that we feel does the most amazing thing in terms of like making Drupal 8 much easier to develop on, increases robustness, and everyone is going like, if you don't do that, you're the stupidest fools on earth, then we're not going to be the stupidest fools on earth, right? That's what discretion is about. It's about making sure that we don't have rules that force us to make decisions which are silly.
So if you, yeah, that's.
But this isn't a case of that. This isn't a case of like if like the chain router is a level of complexity that we probably don't require, but it's hardly the biggest case of that. A good example of a major task that will probably land during the RC phase is a complete reworking of how the entity manager is composed and trying to break the entity manager up into many different services. The reason for that is like entity management, first off, is not what the entity manager does, it's an entity type manager. Secondly, it does a gazillion things. It's a complete God service in terms of Drupal 8's functionality, and it's just really bad. It's a really bad idea to have it do so much. So that will make everyone's lives easier throughout the whole of the Drupal 8 cycle. It'll have a massive impact on the code that people write against Drupal 8. This won't.
Fair enough.
Not that I don't like the change. I love the change. I wish, as I say, I wish we'd done it beforehand.
Yeah.
Anyone who's stepped through how routing occurs in Drupal 8, it goes like, oh wow, I'm here. Oh wow, I'm there. Oh, I'm here. And it's like, yeah, it would be nice to not have that experience whilst in a debugger, but like, it's not alone in being a bit like that.
Oops.
So to sum up all the irritating questions, I gathered that now we should concentrate on contrib more, so that we have a better integration with core, and while writing contrib, we try to find as many as we can critical bugs as we can. So that's the gist I got from this discussion. Is that right?
Yeah, doing porting modules is a great task for the RC phase, as outlined in the release note.
So there's also the RC deadline issues, which the guidelines say should be either moved to 8.1 or 9. But I think there's definitely a lot of them that are mistagged. Is that going to be a community effort to do that, or should we do some triage there? Or
issue triage is always welcome.
Okay.
That has to, like, a true is true.
I'll at least remove some of those that are trivially mistyped.
Yep. Yeah, I've been doing some of that myself. And yeah, any help triaging the queues and working out, we have a massive major queue, but not everything that's in there is actually major anymore. Some of them have been fixed in other patches. Like, the issue queues, as Gibran said, are kind of like massive, and anything we can do to try and to get a hold of them would be great.
Cool. So we are out of time, or do we have anything else we wanted to discuss?
So another issue which would, in theory, one day improve the robustness is the following, which is step 2 of browser test base, which is to...
That's totally. I can answer you. Testing infrastructure improvements are totally allowed during RC. This again, especially this issue. If we didn't allow this one, this would be a definite case of being stupid.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So can we just cut? No, I think it doesn't make sense to discuss.
Yeah, we don't need to discuss it. The call is at its limit. So, but yeah, please, someone deliver front end testing for Drupal 8. That would be the most massive win ever.
Yes, dear Lord, yes. In-place editing test coverage.
Yeah.
You cannot imagine how many times I've fought tooth and nail with the browser in order to test the same stupid scenario over and over again to find that one edge case, and so on and so on.
Yeah.
It's so painful.
Yeah. So cool. Yay, RC is here.
Yay!
Congratulations, everyone.
Yeah, congratulations, everyone. And thank you, everyone, for all of your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool.
Have a nice weekend, everyone.
Yep, have a nice weekend, and hopefully an actual weekend this time.
Yeah, I'm going camping with Jack. It's going to be lovely.
Oh, that's awesome. Glad to hear that. Take care.
Take care.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.